Hey traders, welcome back to Valorizo Capital. On today's video, we're gonna go through the market update and we're also gonna take a look at the weekly watch list. The purpose of this video, as always, is to create a high probability roadmap for next week. That way we can position ourselves to make profits in the market. And also guys, remember that this video is based just on my personal opinion and is not financial advice. So let's start right here with the video guys, and remember that if at any point of this video you find this information valuable, remember to subscribe to the channel. So let's start here with the information, right? Last week we were talking about the possibility, of course, of a continuation to the upside, but at the same time we were talking about the possibility of a slight pullback in the SPX. So let me just show you the chart right here, and you can see that I have a little bit kind of a different feel for my chart. The indicators are the same, the information is the same. I just changed the candles, as you can see right here. That way I can see a little bit more of the information in price. I can see the patterns a little bit better, so I really like this feel for the candles. So let's start right here. What happened with the SPX this week? What was the expectation that we had for the SPX? So let's talk a little bit about that. Remember that last week what happened, well, before last week, what happened was that on Friday we had this candle, and we were talking about the possibility of seeing a pullback back to that 21 exponential moving average, which is this line right here. And we were talking about that perhaps we're going to see a little bit of a pullback, perhaps a little bit of a test of this gap, and then a continuation to the upside. Well, you can see right here that as soon as the week started, we had a really nice hammer candle. And remember, guys, that the market is always changing, right? We make decisions with the information that we had at the moment. And as soon as that information changes, then we have to update our thesis. But of course, holding kind of the main picture of the market. And that main picture was that the market was still in an uptrend, and the possibility of a continuation to the upside was pretty high. So we have to always keep that in mind. And you can see right here that we had a pretty strong week to the upside, basically just 4 days in a row that the market continued to close positively in positive territory. And you can see right here that the market is in breakout mode. So we break out from this 5,500 level, and now we're going into this very big important level in terms of resistance, which is going to be 5,600. Now, what is going to be the expectation for next week? I do think that the market does have a window in terms of seasonality that is pretty strong in these first 2 weeks of July, even going into that third week of options expiration. So I will not expect any changes, any considerable changes in the terms of structure, especially when talking about the structures, when talking about the structure of the market in a systematic way, when talking about options expiration and all that, I don't expect any real change before that options expiration, which is going to be on that third Friday for this month. So the expectation, of course, is a continuation to the upside. Now the question is, where are we going to find those setups that we can position, since a lot of the things are right now extended? So let's take a look at SPX here. SPX is extended. I do think that we're gonna test that 5,600 level, and if we jump to the Qs, let's take a look at the Qs here. We can also see that we're going right into this another big level, which is going to be 500. Now, remember guys that these levels, you can see right here that I have the name is going to be a call wall. I know that many of you guys subscribed to the channel after I made that video on Gamma Edge, talking about how options structure affect price and everything. So expect more of this information in the channel as well. I'm using a different service right now, which is MentorQ. Pretty amazing service. I'm gonna find some time to make a video perhaps on that, but it's basically the information is gonna be it's gonna be the same, right? Because we're looking for those very important levels in terms of options positioning. So you can see right here that we do have a call wall at 500, expecting, I think is I think it's important to expect that level to act as resistance. But of course, if we take a look at price, the QQQ right here is in breakout mode. So is this going to stop at 500? Perhaps. But remember that these levels can adjust and they can adjust higher. So last week we had a first level at 490. That level adjusted to 500. So are we going to adjust for 510? We don't know that. But right now the market continues to be bullish. So there is really my expectation is really that the market will continue to go higher. Now, let me show you what I think is going to happen. And of course, this is based on speculation, so it's very important to take that into consideration. But I do think that we're going to see a lot of rotation. Now, this is a beautiful setup in the DIA. This is going to be the Dow Jones 30. You can see right here that we had this really nice move up. And if you like price patterns, you can see right here that we have the pole and now we have the flag. So this is looking pretty nice. Is also, you can see right here that we are in positive gamma territory, which is also pretty nice to see. And you can see right here that we are above this anchor VWAP, anchor from this low right here. You can see that we hold that price and now we are above this anchor VWAP breakout. So I do think that we're going to see a continuation to the upside. We do have a call wall at 400. So I will not be surprised if we happen to see a breakout in the DIA. We see a little bit of rotation out of the mega caps because a lot of the mega caps are really extended right now, and we start to see a little bit more participation in some other aspects of the market. So the DIA is going to be one of my prime setups for next week. I do have a position in UDAO. Let me show you really quickly. I do have a position. This is going to be the 3x leverage ETF for the DIA. I started my position around 78.65. I do have a first target of 80.80, and then of course I'm looking at least for these Fibonacci extensions up here. So this setup is looking pretty nice. And then the question is going to be if we're going to see some rotation in the IWM. Now this chart continues to be really choppy, but again we continue to see higher highs, higher lows, and we continue to see higher highs. So as of now, even though this looks pretty choppy, the IWM continues to be in an uptrend, and I do expect that probably this level is gonna hold support, and we're gonna see a really nice move breaking out finally above 204, and then changing this pattern consistently, and perhaps a test somewhere around this 210 level is gonna be a call. Structural level. So I do think that we're going to test it, but for now IWM continues to be in an uptrend, and I think it's really important to take that in consideration. And of course, if we happen to break this anchor VWAP level of support, then perhaps we're going to go down and test this 200 daily moving average, and that of course is going to be a change in the structural price action of the market, and that's going to be pretty different. But for now, I do think that we're in support, and I do think that we're going to see some continuation to the upside, and that we're going to see some rotation into other sections of the market. Let's take a look at Bitcoin, and then we're going to take a look at the setup. So let's take a quick look at Bitcoin right now, because if we take a look at this price action in Bitcoin right now, you can see that we had a really nice flush, but I do think that there's a really high probability that we're seeing some kind of capitulation move right here in crypto. So you can see right here that we had this really nice flag, and then of course we had a really nice breakout. We are kind of testing this level right here. So I do expect that this level is going to be a really important level of support for Bitcoin. But of course, right now, the structure in Bitcoin continues to be to the downside. You can see right here that we had this really interesting flush. And of course, if anything is going to happen, we need to take out this $60,000 level. First of all, because if we anchor a VWAP, you can see right here that I have an anchor VWAP. You can see that that level comes somewhere around 59,135. So in terms of volume, price, and time, that is going to be a pretty important level of resistance. But if we happen to take that out, I do think that Bitcoin can change its short-term structure and start moving to the upside. So now let's take a look at the setups. And I think it's also important, guys, to mention some of the setups that we were talking about last week. We were talking about Mara. I do think that Mara is going to set up again, right? Remember that we were talking about Mara somewhere around this zone right here. You can see that we had a really nice move to test this level. Now, of course, crypto had a pullback, and now you can see that Mara is back again at that anchor VWAP zone. And I do think that this anchor VWAP zone is going to play an important role for Mara to find some support, and then perhaps we're finally going to break above this double top and go to this next level of gamma, which is somewhere around 25. So keep Mara in your radar. I do think that coin is also looking interesting. So a couple of these crypto names, I do think that it's trying to find a little bit of support. You can see right here that coin, kind of a double top forming here. You can see that momentum continues to rise. So that's kind of a divergence. But of course, my trigger would be if we happen to start reclaiming this 230 level, which is a very important level in terms of gamma. If we happen to get above that, I do think that there is a really nice possibility for coin to go all the way back to 260. So it's going to be these are going to be a couple of setups that are going to be focusing on next week. Now, let me show you the list that I have right now, which is going to be the focus list for next week. You can see right here that I do have DIA, I do have IWM, and I have a couple of other names that I want to focus on next week. Most of these names are going to be kind of in that medium to small cap section. So a lot of the mega caps are really extended and are not my focus. So let's start talking about. Let's just mention a couple of these. Right, I want to mention Hood. I do think that this one is looking pretty nice. I do have a position on this one. So let me just make this a bit smaller so you can see Hood right here looking pretty nice. We did have a shakeout. Remember that Hood does have a little bit of involvement with that crypto market, so I do think that capitulation was pretty necessary here in Hood. You can see that this kind of shakeout, we had a really strong bar close back above all the anchor VWAPs, so I am expecting Hood to finally make its move. You can see right here that we also have this trend line here. If we happen to break above the trend line, I do think that we have a really nice opportunity to go to that 25 level, which is also kind of a call. It is a call wall, so I do expect that to act as a magnet. So that's gonna be Hood. Let's take a look at Spotify, and then we're gonna take a look at Kava. Well, we can take a look at Carvana. We did take a look at Kava last week. Basically the same setup. Let's just take a look pretty quickly. You can see that Kava is basically continue to flag here. We continue to have kind of this BCP action. I do think that Kava is finally going to be ready to test this 100 level. So keep this one in your watch list. I continue to hold my position on that one. But let me show you Spotify. Spotify is looking amazing. So let's take a look here. You can see right here that Spotify, kind of the same thing, right? You can see that buyers continue to buy these at higher levels. And I do expect, I do think that we also have kind of a trend line here. And I do expect that Spotify, after finally closing above these anchor VWAPs, anchor from this high here and this high here, meaning that buyers are in control. I do think that it is a pretty easy setup to manage. I started my position at 313. I do have a stop right here at 305, but I do think that Spotify have a really nice chance of making new highs here. Really nice setup. And then finally, let's take a look at Carvana. Carvana is looking really nice. I don't have a position in this one right now, but you can see the setup. And this is what I really like about the candles that I have right here, because I can really see all of the price action. You can really see the cup. You can really see the handle here, and it's looking really nice. If we anchor a VWAP at this low here, that's going to be the average price of all this move right here. And you can see how perfectly that level held. And you can see right here that we had a call wall at 130. If we happen to get above that level, I do think that Carvana can enter a little bit into that squeeze zone, and we continue, and we are going to see higher prices here. So that's gonna be the setups that I'm going to be watching for next week. Of course, you can see the entire list. You can see if those setups match your system, and then of course you can make decisions based on that. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. In summary, I'm looking for higher prices, but I'm looking for rotation out of the mega caps back into these small cap names. So once again, thank you so much for your time. I will see you in future videos. Take care and bye bye.